welcome to episode 13, lucky number 13 of Chew on This or Nerds United podcast. I'm BJ.
Vic.
All right, dude, first of all, before we go anywhere, we got to talk about what dropped today this morning, the Captain America Civil War trailer.
Yeah, that was one hell of a trailer, and I don't even know where to start with what we saw.
Well, first of all, way to go, Marvel. It's like, I mean, everything that DC's been trying to do with Batman v Superman, it's complete, utter turd compared to what Marvel's been doing with Captain America.
Yeah, as good as that last trailer was that DC dropped with Batman, fighting like Batman that we've seen in everything but the movies. I mean that whole fight scene with Batman in the beginning of that last trailer reminds me of the video games that are out now, the Arkham series, but of course it also reminds me of Batman the animated series, one of the best cartoons ever.
Yeah, absolutely.
But even like, I don't know, maybe it's because I know we're really negative about Man of Steel and the whole Zack Snyder DC thing on the podcast, but I'm wondering if not only does Marvel make better movies, but I'm wondering, it's taken 13 Marvel movies or whatever it is to get to here. Almost, man, it's like 10 years to get to this point.
Yeah, it's when did almost like 8 years, because Iron Man came out in 2008.
Right.
But still, I mean, what I can't believe is that they can still make us excited 13 movies in. The first trailer, it was that last shot of the three people fighting, and then Iron Man, Bucky, and Captain America. And in this one, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched the Civil War trailer, pause this and go watch it, because it's 2.5 minutes of pure joy. But the last few seconds, that shot of Spider-Man was just, I was already having the chills watching that trailer, but when that happened, I gasped for air. I was like, really like taken aback because of the suit and because the eye blinked. I was just like so happy.
The Spider-Man thing was the big thing. There was rumors before this trailer dropped. What's funny, I was actually reading the rumors when this trailer dropped. But the rumors were that there was supposed to be Spider-Man all over this trailer, and they basically waited till the very end to just give you a glimpse, and it made perfect sense to do what they did with the eyes and leave it to Marvel to figure out how to get the eyes to show any kind of expression.
Oh my
It looked like they were
gosh.
it almost looked like they were like electronic goggles so that he could focus and unfocus, but it gave his face a whole new expression, because none of the movies were ever able to accomplish that with what they were trying to do with the Oakley sunglasses and things like that. Never
No,
able
they
to
had
get
to
expression.
keep. They kept pulling their masks off all the time.
Yes, so really annoying.
Now you don't really have to do that. I mean, Deadpool did a perfect job too, as well. But
well, they didn't really explain how his eyes did what they did in that movie.
yeah,
But
that's true.
it didn't really matter to me. But I guess in that Marvel universe, it has to make sense, and it made perfect sense, because when I saw it, I was like, wait a minute, did he just make a face like you only see in the comics and the
Oh my
cartoons?
gosh.
And then I rewound it a few times, and I was like, oh my god, those are goggles or something.
I'm wondering. Well, now it leads me to believe that Tony Stark did have something to do with that.
Well, I know I'm guessing. We're gonna end up talking an hour about this trailer if we don't start moving on.
I know. We'll
but
move on
really,
soon.
really quick, like the movie has nothing really to do with the comic books other than pitting superhero versus superheroes and Tony Stark on one side and Steve Rogers on the other. Because what the catalyst for this movie is not what happens in the comic books. It's actually worse. what
Right.
happens in the comic books. I mean, so anyway, but regardless, that trailer was ridiculous, and it did exactly what it was supposed to do: have everybody talking about that instead of Batman v Superman.
Right. 2 weeks before Batman v Superman, they dropped this trailer, and it's just like, Batman what? What
And
what
they
what are we
released
talking about?
the tickets today.
Oh, for Civil War?
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Oh, that's funny. Yeah,
So they
it's oh
dropped the
my
trailer,
gosh.
and then they released the trailer. I mean, I'm sorry, they released the tickets.
The movie's gonna make like 200 million. It can't fail. It's gonna do ridiculous business, and I have a feeling Batman v Superman is not gonna do that kind of
The
business. The
predictions for
clear
Batman v Superman are
under
below
Deadpool's.
Deadpool's. Yeah.
Yeah, which that's Deadpool hit a milestone mark too. It's now the highest rated R movie and the highest X-Men movie. It's actually way over X-Men actually.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I digress. But anyway, Marvel is killing it. They Disney's killing it. They own all the properties now. They own Marvel and they own what else do they own? Everything.
Well, they own Star Wars.
Lucasfilm. Um, the new Star Wars movie. Beyond and above Marvel, the Star Wars movies. I think they're going to be making them for the next like 10 years or something like that. They
Yeah,
said
they
it's
they said
another.
they're like planning 10 in a row.
That's just
Well,
that's
not 10
just
in a row, but
crazy.
10 every once a year for 10 years so far.
That's crazy, man. That's insanity. I mean, they got to be like a monopoly or something. They got to get sued. But well, I mean, so the purpose of this podcast, we were talking the other day about The Force Awakens and how they hired the right director to resurrect that franchise back to its former glory, and they hired J.J. Abrams to do it, which I've been a huge fan of his since I've been a huge fan of his since I didn't even know who he was. Like I didn't know he wrote regarding Henry, and I didn't know that he created Felicity. I didn't know those things. I didn't really start following him until Alias, you
Okay.
know,
I
came
don't think
about.
I've never watched an episode of Alias.
Oh wow, you got to Netflix that shit. It's pretty strong, and you'll fall in love with Jennifer Garner. She's
Huh.
she's pretty. Yeah, she was a good. It was kind of like Do you remember that show Dark Angel with when Jessica Alba first came on the scene?
Yes, yeah, that's a James Cameron
Yeah,
one.
yeah, James Cameron series. Well, that series failed miserably in its second season. But Alias just it got better and better, and then when you just thought that it was just going to be another crappy series because it started to go downhill a little bit, they totally did this like crazy ending of this one season where they fast forward a few years, whatever, and that I think that's one of the first times they ever did that. Where they just like fast forward a few years and then it rejuvenated the series again, and they just kept doing really cool stuff like that. Um, but did you ever you saw regarding Henry, right?
Oh yeah, that's a great movie, and I had no idea that he was the one who wrote the screenplay, and he did it in college too.
Yeah, that's right. Well, he wrote Taking Care of Business, I think was the first movie, which is like a Belushi movie.
Right. I think he
Um,
was. I don't
the
know if
one
it
that's
was.
alive.
Well, I don't think he. I don't know if it was an original screenplay like regarding Henry was.
Yeah, I know regarding Henry was, and then I didn't know, but he also wrote Forever Young with Mel Gibson,
Right. I didn't know that either.
which is another pretty cool movie. Very like Spielbergian too. I know I always mention Spielberg because I think he's one of his idols actually.
Yeah.
Um, but Forever Young really reminded me of like that movie Always that Spielberg did years ago with Richard Dreyfuss and
Right. Right. I remember
and
that one.
John Goodman. Yeah, really good. That's a good flick too. Crap.
What's
Um,
crazy is that those movies that he wrote screenplays for and started getting a name for himself are so far from anything he's done in the last what 5, 6, 7 years.
yeah, he's really like went to like the kind of like how M Night always does like supernatural stuff. JJ kind of does like
Sci-fi,
sci-fi
fantasy,
and
fantasy.
yeah, sci-fi fantasy, and he's pretty good at it for the most part. His directorial debut though um, was Mission Impossible 3, which I think he wrote the script as well, if I
Right.
remember right. And that rejuvenated that series because I thought the second one was terrible. It was
Well,
just so
he
bizarre
is
and
known
weird.
as he is known as the sequel guy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's also known as put together a team guy. Like Alias, what I loved about that show is again, it was the team aspect of it. And in the second Mission Impossible, it was like Tom Cruise, like through the whole thing, like it was oversaturation, and it was over like it felt like a big ego movie or something. And then when he made the third one, it was all about the team again.
Right.
Like he brought in Ving Rhames and Simon Pegg, and and then I think the bad guy was Philip Seymour Hoffman, God rest his
Yeah.
soul,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he was an awesome bad guy in that.
He was. He was really good.
But he's just really good. JJ's really good at creating like really interesting stories, and again, like really good at ensemble pieces, and
He's
really
really
good.
he's really good at with playing with somebody else's toys. Like, I mean,
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
he's really good at saying, "Man, I love that stuff. I really loved it. I bet you I can make it better, or I can fix it for you." And
Yeah, absolutely.
I
Like
know
he's
he
a
hates
fanboy.
that. I know he doesn't like that, but of course, what he did with Star Wars. But before that, Mission Impossible, rejuvenating that a little bit after one bad movie.
Hmm.
And then, which I didn't really mind too much because I'm a big John Woo fan,
Yeah, me too.
um, but he did it with Mission Impossible, and then he did it with Star Trek. And
Yeah,
basically, I know, like, I think there's like 50 to 40% Star Trek fans that didn't like the reboot of Star Trek, but
hmm.
I liked it, and I've told you before in the past that I loved it because it wasn't Star Trek, it was Star Wars. Like,
Totally, totally.
he basically took all of the Star Trek characters, updated them, then did this interesting reboot of just retelling all of the history, and then adding a little tiny bit of sci-fi with that time, with the time jumping and all that stuff,
Yeah,
and then the
yeah.
rest of it is straight action comedy, not like slapstick comedy, but like those perfect timing comedies, which Star Wars is known for having a little fun here and there in their movies. And I mean, he made a Star Wars movie from Star Trek.
Yeah, and that I really was so skeptical going into that movie because how dare you recast everyone in
Right.
these iconic roles?
I
And he
think
fucking
everybody
did it.
is really good in that. I think the weakest person is probably crap. I can't remember her name. Uh, well,
The one who
she's
played
the yeah. I think
Uhura?
her. Yeah, I think her. Not the actress. I just thought the character was kind of weak in that. Wasn't that great?
Yeah, well, they kind of beefed her character up a little bit because Uhura was
Didn't really do anything.
didn't really do a lot. So I don't know, but I can go either way on that. I thought I love that actress. She's in a lot of cool
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. I mean, she's in Guardians of the Galaxy,
Oh yeah,
but I just
and
didn't buy
Avatar
her.
and
Yeah, I didn't buy. I didn't buy that as much as the other characters or the other
what about
actors
the
did.
what about the twist of her and Spock kind of?
That was pretty cool, and I think the second movie suffers from a lot of those things where they take a lot of little twists that she does more than just repeat what the computer's repeating. So they really
Right.
blew out her character, and you get to see a young Kirk, not as poised as the older Kirk. But
Oh
I
yeah.
liked the little twist that kind of turned things upside down a little bit. So with Spock and her, it was cool. But I thought the sequel suffered tremendously from trying to capture those moments and turning them upside down. Obviously the most famous part is the death of Spock in the second movie. But
Which is so
it still
heartbreaking and
holds
so
up,
awesome.
still holds up, and
Absolutely.
and in the the JJ version, it's Kirk that's about to die. He doesn't actually really die though, like in the other one, where
Well,
Spock
you see
actually
it
does
coming.
kick him.
Yeah, you see it coming from 20 miles away. What's going to happen? And
Yeah, and it was
it,
bad.
it didn't have any impact at all. Like when it happened, I was like, all right, there he'll be back. It's not a big deal. But like in Wrath of Khan, I was like, holy shit, they killed Spock.
Yeah.
They fucking killed him.
Well,
Um,
nobody was ever really in that kind of serious danger in the TV show. It was always the guy with the red shirt.
which they totally paid homage to in the first Star Trek movie, the
Yeah,
reboot.
yeah,
It
yeah.
was
When
it
they
was
jump him
awesome,
down.
such an awesome scene. Uh, yeah, I remember when he put that red shirt on, I just giggled. I'm just like, oh, that guy's
Yeah.
gonna get it. And he had a horrible death.
Yeah, he didn't just get shot or something by some like nomad or some alien race he never met. I mean, his death was really bad.
Yeah, he burned in the fire. It was horrible. But no, I thought that whole cast is pretty strong, and I thought the first Enterprise or the first Star Trek reboot was pretty good, solid. And I heard like he had to postpone it like 6 months or something like that. Which anytime he seems to do that, the movie ends up being better. So like when Star Trek Into Darkness came out, it suffered a lot. I think they just wanted him to get that sucker out as quickly as he could, and I think he made Super 8 in between. But when Star Trek Into Darkness came out, it had a weird feel to it, and then that whole thing of like trying to keep Khan quiet, try to keep that storyline quiet, which it just pissed people off. They're just like, what they were trying to keep it like secret, and of course it came out, and then they kept denying it, whatever, like no, whatever. And then the movie came out, and it's Khan, and everyone like, see, I told they were like, see, why did you keep it such a big secret, and yeah, it was just kind of weird, and the storytelling on that one wasn't as good. And I think he's even come out and said that that movie had some bad story elements that didn't work, that they should have took more time and ironed out. So, um, but he also produces a lot of stuff. Like, didn't he produce Lost? And I
Well, didn't
think
he
he might
create
even.
Lost though?
I think him and Damon Lindelof and a couple other people created it. I was listening to a podcast with J.J. Abrams on it, and he was saying that. Or no, wait, it was Damon Lindelof they had on. Sorry, and they were. He was saying that Survivor at the time was a big show, and so the executives say, we want to make a show where people are trying to survive or something. And so like they ended up creating Lost out of that, because every time someone tried to do something, it kept failing. And they
Right.
gave it to them, and they came up with the idea of like, the polar bear and the smoke monster and all that shit, and they produced the first pilot months ahead of time. I remember watching it like in April or something like that, months before it came out. I downloaded it and watched it, and I was so riveted. I'm like, crap, I have to wait 5 months for this thing to come out,
Yeah.
and
Little
it
did you
took off.
know.
It
Yeah.
took off. I mean, that show has
Yeah. I mean,
more
it sucked you
pisses me
in.
off.
Sucked you in the
Yeah,
first season or the first episode. It sucked me in.
yeah, that
Little did
show
I
pissed me
know that
off
I
more
would
than
be
the X
so
Files.
pissed off like when the show was done. It was one of the
Well,
worst. It
yeah,
was one of the worst like um series finales for me anyway.
yeah, I was right up there with Seinfeld being like one of the worst. But
Dexter's was pretty bad too.
yeah, but he's a really good storyteller. But I think you and I were talking the other day about how certain filmmakers like him um, start really strong. The movie starts strong, and it builds up and it builds up and it builds up, and then the ending kind of lets you down a little bit.
Yeah,
And
and we were talking, we were trying to figure out like because I thought he had a lot more um, directing jobs, and he hasn't had as
yeah,
many. He hasn't had as many directing jobs as you think as somebody as big as his name was or is
right. He has it, and original stuff. Like I think
now.
Super 8 is really his truly own original that he wrote and directed.
Right? Yes, exactly, and that's the movie that I actually just finished watching for this podcast. And
And didn't you think like
I gotta
that?
say,
Yeah,
I've only watched it once, and it was in the theater, and I came out thinking it wasn't that great, and then I finished watching it tonight, and you know what? It's really good the second time around. Like
yeah,
really
it
good because
does
I
kind of
started
catch
paying
on.
attention to like all the nuances in the storytelling and what he was doing. And let me just first say this, that this is probably what ET would have looked like if it was done now today, because
Yeah,
that movie is, I don't know what it was, maybe like an homage to ET, but there's like all these little things in the movie that reminded me of ET, to the military guys, of how he filmed this one scene where they were coming down the street. Even the music, I don't know, I didn't look up who did the music, but there's certain, not keys, but there's certain tones in the movie, like when the military comes, I'm hearing this music in Super 8, and it doesn't touch what John Williams did in ET,
yeah,
but there's
yeah.
this tone that is almost identical to what ET was
He,
playing.
I,
So
I, I venture to say I think you're right. I think he did pay homage to E.T. and he was even I think set in the 1978 or 1979
yeah,
is when that
that's,
movie is set in,
yeah,
and E.T. I
79.
think came out like in 82 or something like that. So it's pretty close.
Right. And but again, like watching it the second time, I don't know why watching it the second time mattered, but when I was paying attention to, I mean, not that I wasn't paying attention the first time, but I was, I already knew what was going to happen, so I, paid attention to things outside of just, being in the theater and watching a movie, and
Yeah.
it played a lot better the second time. What did you think? I mean,
I watched it.
you've seen it more than me.
Well, this is probably my third time seeing it, and like I remember the first time I watched it, I kind of came out of there a little disappointed, and I think it's because the buildup was so good, and then the just the weird ending, underground with the creature running around, and then the creature looked kind of fake, honestly, when they zoomed in on it, which I hate that because when he produced Cloverfield, the same kind of thing happened. And I don't know if he had a hand in writing that, but it kind of did the same thing. It like had this massive buildup, and then the ending just kind of fell flat. Um, but seeing it anyway, I saw Super 8 for the third time recently, and I caught a lot of those nuances that you talked about. A lot
Right.
of the same beats. There's a lot of the same beats as ET. Obviously, there's a couple things that are different. ET was a loving, plant loving
Right.
creature and
He
all
didn't
that
eat
stuff. And
people.
this other creature was just being held against its will, and it was trying to go home. The same as ET's trying to go home, but he's like, you know, um, he eats people.
Yeah.
Like
But he was
he's
made
like,
that way, though.
I
I
need
mean,
food.
yeah, they show that he was made that way because in the beginning, he wasn't like that, and you get that from the teacher's commentary when they're watching the film when they break into the school.
Yeah,
Um, so, but those were the little things that I guess I didn't either pay attention to or care for, because I don't know. I just, maybe I'm just a better like film watcher now, or pay attention to more stuff, but
hmm
it really, see, and this is maybe my mind twisting the actual truth of it, because I could have swore like this movie was like in the 60s or 70s on Rotten Tomato.
yeah.
So when I was done tonight with it, I was like, I wonder what, I was like, wow, that's a lot better than I thought it was before. And I went to look up the Rotten Tomatoes, and it was actually at 82%.
Okay.
So, which is
No,
weird that my mind played that trick on me, and I could picture 82% watching this movie the second time
I
around.
I believe that. What really hit me when I first watched it was Goonies, was
Right.
ET,
I can see that.
because of the kids,
Right.
and they're talking over each other, and they're pretty realistic. They don't feel like they're acting. They feel like they've all known each other. They're friends, and it just seemed kind of natural, watching these kids do their thing. And the other thing that I really liked was the whole filmmaking thing. I know that Spielberg
That's,
and JJ, I think
yeah,
when they were
right,
kids,
exactly. Yep.
they would film stuff. I filmed stuff when I was a kid. I filmed little home movies, and so I really connected with a lot of those things. The one thing I didn't connect with was the which I think propels the story a little bit, is the death of the mother. I know they kept kind of that felt like it borrowed from Signs a little bit. The movie Signs, the M
Yeah,
Night
but was
movie.
Signs before or after this? I think it was before, right?
Signs came out, yeah, at least several years. Well, Super 8 came out in 2011. I think
Yeah,
Signs came out back in 2003 or 2 or somewhere around there.
right,
But it really felt that was the one thing that really stuck out where I was like, I didn't really connect with that as much as I did with, because I think they did it better in Signs, to be honest.
really,
Well, I thought so because there was kind of a buildup on that too. You knew there was something. You knew that something bad had happened to her, but they never really said what. And then but they kept showing you little snippets, and then
right, right,
at the very end, they flashbacked and showed exactly what happened to her, and it was awful, but it made sense to that character and how he changed at the end. What he kind of got through it
right,
because for years he wasn't just living his life anymore. He was, not doing. He wasn't. He lost his faith, and so I really dug it. But in this movie, it just kind of like, yeah, she went to work and because the guy was drunk, and so she ended up taking his place, and she gets killed in an accident. And it just, for whatever reason, it didn't have the same impact as Signs did for me. So
hmm.
it kind of like, I
All
didn't
right,
like,
I could see that for that one part. I
yeah.
could see it for that one part, but I thought the kids and what they were going through when you didn't see the alien in both cases worked out better than in Signs.
Yeah. Oh, that I agree
Like all
with.
the other stuff outside of that build up to the wife being pinned, um, I can agree with that. But everything else, but that was such a small part of it that
They flip flopped because the ending of Signs is a wet fart too, even worse than Super 8.
yeah, yeah.
Because that I mean, the buildup on that is ridiculous. And then at the very end, swing your bat
Yeah.
at him. What the
No,
fuck?
it was the
Throw
water.
some water at it. Yeah, throw some water at it and beat it with a bat. It's like welcome to welcome to Earth. Um, but Super 8, does the other thing better. The buildup with the alien. But again, it's definitely I don't know, kind of felt like it had some Men in Black in it too. Just the creature itself.
Well, here's the problem I had with the creature, and I kept thinking about this the whole time. And I know he didn't direct this other movie, but it really reminded me of the big monster in Cloverfield. And I'm guessing it's the same special effects team, but like, what is
Mm-hmm.
it with him and aliens with multiple arms?
I don't know, and weird, like this thing like breathed through its face too. It was weird, like the
Yeah, it was
face
like,
puffed up and stuff like that.
yeah, it was like a little bit of like the vampires in like Blade. Like,
Yeah, and I think the Cloverfield one, like it had like a sack on its face or something like that on the side of its face
yeah, it had a little bit of
that was like
Predator in it or
breathing.
something.
Yeah, it was very strange. Like that movie, I think played more like a Godzilla monster movie kind of thing.
Right. But the
And
thing
this
had
one,
multiple arms or something. It was like, it hunched over when it walked or something too,
yeah,
I think.
see, you haven't played that game Half Life, but it reminded me of like these. There's these creatures in Half Life that stand really, really super tall like that, and they just like run around and trash stuff. But they shoot actually, but
Huh.
this thing doesn't shoot. But what I did like about Cloverfield, it wasn't just like a monster running around and crashing buildings. It had like its offspring would like come off of it and run around, and like if
Right, the
it
little
bit
mini
you,
monsters, yeah.
yeah, you'd explode. That was kind of nuts. But no, Super 8, it was pretty decent storytelling. It did borrow a lot from other movies and stuff like that, but everyone does that. And I just thought that a mishmash of all those movies that he did ended up creating something that I thought was somewhat original, and some of those kids really made me laugh and made me think about my childhood friends and stuff like that. Definitely made me think of the Goonies. It just brought me right back to the Goonies.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, but what I liked is that it was really about the kids, making this horror movie, and it just happened to be like this horrific thing happening on the outside, while they're doing
Right.
their thing, and I did dig that. I thought that was pretty cool. And then they had a little kind of love story in the middle of it. And did you know that that's Dakota Fanning's younger sister?
I didn't until tonight when I looked it up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I did. I figured that out. Like, well, I mean, after the movie came out, I was like, yeah, she looks familiar. But speaking of which, I haven't seen Dakota Fanning in like ages. But
Yeah, she hasn't been anything in
um,
a while.
yeah, she hasn't really been anything for a while except like Twilight or something like
That's
that.
horrible.
Bad career choice.
Yeah, maybe that's
Um,
why she hasn't done anything since then.
well, what I'm curious now is after Force Awakens, how do you follow up that? Like, I wonder what he's going to be working on next. It seems like makes a big studio pick and then he goes and does something personal kind of thing. And
Well,
so,
one of his interviews, he was saying that he wanted to do something that he did, that he wanted to do as himself because he didn't want to, he didn't want to be the sequel guy, even though he's done like um, three of them. Well, four of them actually, if you count Star Trek twice.
yeah, yeah, he's done, which really blew my mind. I remember when you and I were kind of looking him up on IMDb, we're just like, oh wow, he didn't really make a lot of original stuff. Like I think
Yeah,
Super 8's the only
he's done
thing.
almost as much TV as original movie stuff that he's directed.
Yeah, yeah, and even then, he just like starts a project and then he takes off and does something else. So like,
Right.
he directed the first episode of I think Lost and Alias, and then just kind of let someone else handle it, the day by day kind of stuff.
I heard
Um,
something. I heard something the other day about Lost. I think it was on a podcast where they said that the writers only thought they were going to be on TV for maybe 3 seasons, and
yeah,
then 2 or 3 seasons, and then the studios kept wanting them to do more and more, and you can feel the stories just stretching like crazy.
yes.
Um,
Well,
because if you
especially when they at
think
the end of
about
the
all
third
the
season.
things that they went through. I mean, on that island, right? And the whole time it was only Jack holding himself back. Every single one of those
Well,
people had died on the plane, right?
oh yeah,
So,
something like that.
but
Yeah,
what I don't understand is, so I mean, his dad was on the plane, so it made sense that his dad would greet him at the end when he was ready. But he didn't know any
yeah,
of those other people. He didn't know
no.
any of those other people. And then when they meet each other in, I guess, heaven or where the fuck they were going, they all knew each other. So what? Who was he having these trials
Dude,
through?
listen, we could talk about this for years. I don't even think they know, honestly. Like I probably won't ever go back and watch that series again. I think
No,
one time
never.
through was enough for me, but I had to give up. I think after 2 years of finishing that show, I had to give up trying to figure it out because it just pisses me off. It just makes me angry when I start thinking about because the last few episodes were just way out there, like just completely batshit crazy. What are they doing? I don't understand this crap. I couldn't even tell you what it is anymore because I've
Yeah.
totally erased it out of my memory. I just don't. I don't care anymore. But I think at that point I just wanted to finish the show. I'm just like, oh my god, okay, 10 episodes left. I got to finish this. And then once it was done, I just didn't try not to think about it anymore. But that first couple seasons was strong. I mean, the damn hatch, like for like one whole summer, I was like, "What the fuck is in a hatch?" And then like the second season came and went, and I think by the end of the third season, I was like, you know what? I think I'm done with this show. And then they pull this shit where they did a flash forward instead of a flashback.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh shit, you assholes, suck me back in again. And they actually got off the island at one point. They were off the island for quite a while.
Technically, they were never off the island.
Well, of course, yeah, of course, but still, they tried to make you believe all that shit. And I don't know that. I guess they did what they were supposed to do. They were supposed to be thought provoking and try to piss you off and make you keep watching to find out what happens. And I mean, they
I
win.
don't think I
They
watched
did.
that last season. I don't think I watched the last season, and if I did, I was playing it back on my DVR while I was doing something else.
I had him. We binge watched it, and I again I couldn't tell you what happened in the back half more than
Me
I
neither.
could tell you. I could tell you what happened in the first season, no problem, because that really stuck out big time. The stories were fantastic in that season.
I think the latter seasons ruined the first few seasons for me, especially the first season.
Yeah,
It's kind of like the
yeah.
Matrix Reloaded and Revolutions ruined the Matrix for
Oh
me.
my God, don't get me started. I know. They could easily go back and do another Matrix movie, but I don't see why they would, but they
No,
could.
that first movie is pretty perfect
It's
the way it
perfect the way
is.
it is. Yeah. It almost seemed like, it was a bigger hit than they thought it would be, and then they're just like, "Make more." They're like, all right, I guess."
Yeah, well, the
Because those
second
2
and
movies
third
were
movie
terrible.
are the first movie feels like it was made from someone else. Like
Right.
there's character development, there's good plot points. The plot moves smoothly.
Well, plus,
There's smart dialogue without overly stating a fact. And in the Reloaded and the Revolutions version movies, it's the exact opposite. It's terrible dialogue. Um,
too
it's
flashy, too expensive. Like,
right,
I
and
felt like I felt like when they give you a small budget, you have to really constrict yourself and really, like, think out of the box and all that shit.
yeah. I mean the last 30 minutes of Revolutions is basically an entire green screen.
Yeah, and someone said that that entire ending was worth like 50 to 60 million dollars, I think, of the budget was just the last part of that movie where they're just shoot, the little
Yeah,
war at the end. That is crazy. That's more than what most movies cost, just that little piece.
yeah. It's
Um,
almost what Dirt Deadpool cost.
yeah, Deadpool costs 58 million total. And I heard, like, when they make the second one, they're like, we could pretty much do that on that budget too. So I think a lot of the people took cuts. Like, I think they said the director only made 500 grand, and they
Did
said I
you
think
did you
Ryan Reynolds
s-
only made like 2
did
million.
you see that how it should have ended that
Yeah, yeah,
released?
it's awesome.
In the beginning of the part of it, he's like, it's like, who told you to put a giant explosion, like motion, like major superhero explosion in my movie? And we talked about that. We were like, the ending with the giant explosion was just so out of it. They
It,
didn't
it
need it.
was it was really out of place, and I kept thinking to myself, that looks like a helicarrier, and people are like, yeah, it's a helicarrier. Then no, we can't say it's a helicarrier
Well,
because
the
we
director
don't
came
own
out
that.
this last week said it wasn't a helicarrier.
Yeah, yeah. And I went, I think so when I sit and think about it, it just looked like an aircraft carrier,
Well, it did make a good
but
point. He did make a good point that other people in the Marvel universe use helicarriers, but I mean, why
yeah,
would you put something that resembles something so major from another studio?
yeah, yeah. You're right. That ending was really out of place compared to the rest of it. But
Yeah,
but you kind of you can kind of just say, like, well, that's just nitpicking because the movie's awesome, so it's like whatever.
yeah.
But 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 they need to kind of be aware of that in the next one. I think they were just trying to create something like some grand ending, and they really didn't need to do that. It was
No, it didn't need to be an ending. You could have just the last 20 minutes of the movie could have been Deadpool fighting up like a tower, like in Dread or Punisher
oh god,
or
that would be awesome.
Game of Death.
Yeah, and that works every fucking time. It's weird. I loved it in Judge Dredd. It was awesome. Um, I hope they make another one of those. That was such a trippy movie.
Yeah, I
That
mean, I
was
think it was okay. Because it almost was like a ripoff of this.
the Raid.
Yeah, yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
Who those guys are in
yeah.
Star Wars,
I
actually.
just I find it interesting. A lot of people are just like saying this notion of like rated R superhero movies is like this new thing, but it's been around for a long time. There's a lot of superhero movies that are rated R. It's just that this particular one hit so hard because of the nature of the character and all that
Right.
stuff. But there's tons of rated R, superhero
Yeah, a lot of
movies.
people forget about Blade, the first one.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Blade.
I mean, because
Uh.
if you think about introducing a character like Blade, I mean, he didn't do a lot of acting in the movie, but that's a really good origin superhero movie.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
I loved
I
the
didn't
way.
like the whole Steven Dorff ending
Yeah,
where like he is like the blood god. That was kind of lame, but
the
everything up to
blood
that
god.
point was really good.
Yeah, you can again like you can kind of ignore that a little bit because the rest of the movie is so strong. Like
Yeah.
the opening sequence is alone is worth the ticket.
Oh
It's so
yeah,
fucking
definitely.
good.
Yeah.
Uh, um,
Who filmed
but
that
yeah,
first one?
there's been a ton of rated R movies. I don't like the fact that I think we talked about Batman v Superman being rated R on the
On the
Blu-ray or
Blu-ray
whatever, which
version.
it just makes no sense. Like, why would you? When has there ever been a Superman, let alone a Batman movie
You
that's
know, I
been
was
rated
thinking
R?
about this and I read it online and it made total sense because we've already seen it in the trailers and I just didn't put two and two together. So the guess is that online is that the rated R version is you're going to see the death of Jason Todd. You're going to see
Oh, you're gonna see him being beat to shit by the
yeah,
Joker.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, all right. I would much rather see a rated R animated version of that story versus
They've done it
do
before.
what's
DC
that?
makes yeah, it's out on it's a few years old. DC did it. Of
Oh,
course.
oh,
It's an all their animated stuff is perfect. I love all their animated
it's
movies.
so fantastic. I
Yeah, all
forgot
their
all
animated
about
stuff
that.
is
Damn it.
way better than Marvel stuff. I mean, X Men
Yeah,
was
it is.
good. X Men was good, but it was a little cheesy if you look back on it. But if you go back and watch Batman the animated series, you can't get much better than that.
Dude, they have the Batman animated series characters now, like full on action figures. They're so
Yeah,
badass. Um, yeah, I'd forgotten all about that, but I just, all this, just the marketing of that movie has just been terrible. Like, I mean, it's such a fumble, compared to what Marvel's doing and what they did with Star Wars and all that stuff. I think Disney's just doing a really bang up job, um, keeping that stuff relevant, keeping it fresh, not oversaturated. They know what they have. They don't have to wave their big dick around or anything. They everyone's just excited to see the movie. And I just feel that Batman v Superman are trying really, really hard to get you
yeah.
to go to see their movie when they don't really need to. They didn't need to do that.
Is there
And
any
so
rumor? Is there any rumor to is JJ signed on to Disney stuff, or he was just signed on for Star Wars?
I think they just signed him on for Star Wars, but I wouldn't be surprised if they ever hired him back to do something for them because,
So
you know,
his next movie, like we have no idea what the hell he's doing.
no idea. I think Super 8 is Universal. If I
Oh yes, it was yeah because I remember seeing Amblin Entertainment on it.
Yeah, Amblin and then Bad Robot. So yeah, definitely, I'm sure Steven Spielberg I think executive produced that movie.
Yeah, they both did.
Um um but yeah, I just be really curious to see what he does next. I hope it is an original feature and I hope it's
I hope it's it'd be really good if it's not
something
anything
different.
sci-fi or fantasy like just
Yeah.
something that like go if he can write something as like something that tugs on you like regarding Henry does, then do that because I will
Yeah,
go see that.
absolutely. I love that movie and I love Forever Young. I love both those movies. I think they're really strong.
Yeah,
They do have I mean, of course, regarding Henry doesn't have a supernatural thing to it like Forever Young does, but they're both really like that good feeling, type movies where there's this some sort of flaw
that's
and they have
think
to kind
about
of
this for a
go get
second.
over it.
You're in college. You haven't graduated college yet, right? And
Hmm.
you get word that Harrison Ford, Han Solo himself, is going to be Henry in your movie that you just wrote and
It's
sold.
fucking crazy, dude.
Yeah,
And then if
you're still
Harrison,
in
and then if
college.
someone if someone
He's in
told
the
him
movie.
that
Did
he
you know
would
he's in
be
the movie?
J.J. Abrams is,
Yeah, he's in the movie.
oh shit, I'll have to go back and
It's
watch that movie. It's been
he's
years.
he's the one who rings the doorbell after Henry has his accident. I think he's either the pizza
Oh,
guy or the doorman. But he
oh,
comes up to the apartment or house or whatever.
uh huh.
It's him at the door.
Oh no way, that's too
Yeah,
funny.
so he actually got to interact with Harrison Ford too.
Just I mean, can you imagine years later he directs Harrison Ford as Han Solo in Star Wars? That is just talk about come for full circle, man.
Yeah, I don't even know
That's
what the equivalent
insane.
of that would be for me.
I don't
Like right
know.
now, if that happened right now, and I sold the screenplay like right now, who the hell would be that person for me? I'll be directing like Mark Hamill in a Star Wars. I don't know. Like, what
I
would
don't
that be
know what would be
equivalent?
equivalent. I have no clue, man. That's just the stratosphere. To say that you directed a Star Wars movie, that's like saying you won, back to back Super Bowls. It just doesn't happen very often. It's something
Yeah, no
really
clue.
spectacular. It's got to be something spectacular. Actually, you know what? That would be the equivalent. Like being able to direct a Star Wars movie would be like if you got drafted in the NFL your first year, you go to the Super Bowl and win it. Like a total Kurt Warner situation. Um,
Well, Kurt Warner wasn't a rookie, but um,
he
it was his
wasn't, but he
first.
was a
It was his
he
first
was a
year
grocery
starter.
bagger.
Yeah, he was. Getting back to JJ, what he didn't direct Cloverfield, but
No,
Cloverfield Lane is coming out, and some of the reviews coming in are saying that it's pretty good.
yeah, which I'm happy about because do you remember? So I'm just going back a little bit. You remember? I think I was watching Transformers.
Okay.
Yeah, big piece of shit. And I could tell you why Transformers was an even bigger piece of shit than what I've normally been talking about is because they showed a trailer for Cloverfield before that movie. And the whole time I'm watching Transformers, I kept thinking about that Statue of Liberty head rolling on the ground in New York
Right.
City. It did not leave my head through the entire movie of Transformers. That's how you know you watched a really shitty movies. You couldn't stop thinking about a fucking trailer throughout the whole movie. Um, but that, and they didn't even back then. They didn't even say what the movie was called. It just showed this group of kids at
Right.
a party, and then an
Yeah, that was an
explosion,
awesome
and then the
trailer.
fucking head, and then it ended, and you're like, "What the fuck is this?" It was just a date, and I was like, "Okay, what is this?"
Wasn't that the
And
first big budget handheld camera movie?
yes, it was a found footage movie,
Yeah, it
which
was. It was the
which
first
honestly, I think
big budget one.
it was the first big budget one, but even so, the budget's pretty low compared to most movies. But I think it was uh what was that movie that came out in 1999, the found
Blair
footage movie,
Witch.
the Blair Witch Project. Yeah,
Right.
that kind of like kicked that off. That was a really cheap movie too. But this movie, you're right. I think before Chronicle even came out, it was the biggest budget found footage movie, and it was done like I watched it recently, and like it's still I kept trying to see that how they edited it and stuff, and they did a really very clever edit jobs in that movie. There were times where the film would stop and then it would restart and it would show a different piece of footage and stuff like that, and because the guy recorded over some old footage or something like that. So it did some really interesting editing choices in that movie that I kind of dug. But I think Cloverfield came from like wasn't he like in Japan and like he just maybe touring around doing some other movie? I don't remember. And he started thinking about Godzilla, tearing up the city. And I think that's when he kind of came up with the
I
concept
didn't
of
think it
that.
was his story.
What's that?
I didn't think it was his story.
I don't think it was his story either, but I think it was his idea. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think he wrote it, but he probably pitched it, I imagine. Now I'm gonna have to go and like do some fact finding. But I thought it came from him where he was talking about how he loved old monster movies like Godzilla, and I think they created something based on that. But fast forward to now, and they're calling this thing 10 Cloverfield Lane, and they're doing the same kind of thing they did with Cloverfield, where it's just masked in mystery. Like that trailer came out of nowhere like a month ago.
Yeah, it
And
definitely came out of nowhere. I've never of a movie like this. I've never, and the way they did it too, it was like it was a callback to the first Cloverfield, where it was a
yes,
found footage, or not a found footage, but a released footage of a real trailer. But they purposely did it
yes,
that way.
it was, I mean, pretty awesome because it's got a lot of people talking about it now, going like,
Right.
"What is this?" And then people thinking, "Well, is it the same monster movie, the same monster, or is it just a Cloverfield is just a string of movies that have like these type of alien or supernatural or sci-fi elements?" So it probably has nothing to do with Cloverfield, as far as like a big monster movie, but it might have like some sort of like um I don't even know what the equivalent of that is. Like I guess
Well,
the Edgar Wright movies like Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz and at World's
but
End. They're all the same.
there wasn't anything significant in this movie that was going on with the characters, like the sub where you know this like for Super 8 and Shaun of the Dead, there was an actual plot going on while
Yeah,
the shit was going on behind them. Like it
that's true. That's true.
in Shaun
Yeah.
of the Dead, it was him trying to, you know, be a man or be a grown up for once and take responsibility. And then this other one is about this boy dealing with, you know, the loss of his mom, trying to get through or try to do something with, you know, or try to get along with his dad, and then meets this girl who directly has some ties to his mom's death. Like there was a story there. I can't
Yeah.
remember if there was a story anything like that in Cloverfield. Like
No,
basically,
I
it's the
don't
guy's
know.
going away party, and then all of a sudden shit hits the fan, and it's them trying to survive. So it ends up being like a survivor movie, and that's the problem with monster movies, right? Is that you don't care about the human characters.
Well, he did. I think part of Cloverfield is that well, the movie it goes from survival to I need to get my girlfriend. I need to go get her because like she's trapped, you know.
Right.
And so they go and get her, and then it turns into a survival movie again, which that element of it kind of pissed me off too. They got in the helicopter and they're like clearly gonna escape, and then for whatever reason the monster jumps up and whacks them, and I'm like, why the hell did they fly so why are they circling this monster? Why don't they take off? Like I got so mad. I'm like, what a stupid story point. Like, let's look down there and see what it's doing. And it like jumps up and swats him. And that's how the movie kind of ends. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, the Cloverfield Lane movie just looks really bizarre. And the first trailer that they showed was just the music playing and the three people underground. And then, them opening the door, and then it's like, that's the end of it. And I kept thinking, well, like, is this a family unit or whatever? And then the second trailer kind of confirms that they're not a family at all. In fact, all three of them are not related at all.
No.
Um, yeah. So, yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I think it came out tonight, actually. As we're speaking, it's out right now. And I'll try to catch that pretty soon so we can talk about it. But um, yeah, I'm really like JJ's career is very curious to me. It's interesting compared to some of the other people out there. And he has
It would probably be like my that would be a career that I would like, but at the same time, I think it would bother me too. Like, just imagine, like, you get to play in the Star Wars universe, right?
yeah,
But people can't stop calling you the sequel king or whatever they call him.
right.
You know, like even though
The
you've
sequel
done
fixer.
yeah, even though you've done like this amazing job with Star Trek revitalizing that one, and then you of course not only revitalize Star Wars, but you just basically destroy almost every single box office record doing it. Um, and at the same time, people the biggest problem with that people have with you is that they say you can't come up with a good original idea or one
Right,
as good as the ones that you fix that you know that you're just taking somebody else's
right.
story and
I
characters.
guess you'd have to just hunker. I think what happens is you get to juggling way too many balls in the air. Like I think he right now has so many TV shows on the air right now, and I
Well, I
think
think
even
he's going
more
to
to
be
come.
producing the Star Wars movies too.
Oh, is he? Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I read somewhere that he was pretty upset that he doesn't get to direct episode 8 now. Like he's like, dang
So
it, I
yeah, he
should
read
have.
the script and he said he wanted to do it.
Yeah, I hear it's like really out there too. So we're gonna get a totally different Star Wars movie this time around. But really
Yeah,
curious about it. Oh, speaking of which, something this is totally off topic a little bit, but I read something today about I know they've been wanting to reboot the Tomb Raider um
right.
series again. You know who they're trying to get for that?
This Daisy Ridley.
Yeah, yeah, which it's kind of an interesting choice, right?
Yeah, it is. In my mind, it's an interesting choice just because of the character itself and how the character looks.
Yeah. Well, she
Um,
is. She's British, right? Daisy Ridley, or is she?
right, but there's a reason why Angelina Jolie got that role, and
Well, yeah, because her figure looked just like Tomb Raider's. But I've been reading about how they're trying to um, not give her that kind of figure in the games
well, they
even
give it
anymore.
no, they have it in the game too. I mean, she's not wearing shorts in the game, but she's like they drew her like hourglass and well, not hourglass, but really fit with a big chest. Like
I haven't played the new ones yet. I heard the new ones are pretty good.
I played the reboot, not the reboot. I guess it is a reboot. It's a prequel
Definitive
actually.
collection. Okay.
It was a prequel to all the other Tomb Raiders. They're
Oh,
retelling the
okay.
whole thing, which is they basically did what the movies do, is just
Yeah,
reboot it from the beginning. And so you never got that before. Um,
that's interesting. Well, there's been like
it was
this
good though.
weird.
It was
There's
good
like
though.
this.
I played it.
I heard it was good. I heard that there's like the definitive, like the Rise of the Tomb Raider, or
Yeah,
the definitive.
there's another one out
Yeah.
right now that I haven't played yet, but the reboot was really good. I really liked
Okay.
it. Lots
I
of
might have
like
to
the
check it out because I dig those kind of games. Like I love the Uncharted games, and
yeah,
the fourth Uncharted
yes.
looks
Yeah,
amazing.
this is like I mean Lara
Um.
Croft was Uncharted before it was Uncharted.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. Well, I'll have to check that out. But yeah, I mean, some of the people online, fucking people online, are just like really. A lot of them are really excited about that casting choice, but then there's a lot of people online going, her body doesn't look anything like
Right.
Tomb Raider's body, and I was like, oh, really? Like we're gonna start that crap?
Well, I mean
It's
I mean that's one of the reasons why that character in in the video games was so popular. I mean, she was this stick figure, but
busty. Yeah.
right.
Well, I mean, we did a whole episode about diversity. We could do a whole episode about, inequality, or, sexism and all that stuff. But I applaud him. I mean, if they hire her for that role, so I'll go watch it. I'm sure that today's Tomb Raider will be way better than the piece of shit that they put out a few years ago.
I would hope
So
so, but you never know.
unless Fox pulls a Fantastic Four, then third time around it sucks again. Then
Yeah.
whatever. Just don't give it to Michael Bay, or
No.
have some really good choice. Get a really good female director. There's a lot out there that could probably make something pretty interesting. Um,
Basically, you should
but
get somebody who loves Indiana Jones
yeah, totally,
and do that.
totally. Well, one of the problems I have with the was either the first or second one. Which one had Daniel Craig in it?
I think it was the
Whichever one
first one.
had. Okay, he kept saying the word Tomb Raider in it like 2 or 3, 4 times. What are you, some kind of Tomb Raider? I mean, I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me! Like, please, why are you saying? It was like the most ridiculous, lines in the movie by saying stuff like that. Almost made me cringe just as much as um, the guy, what's that name? Cillian Murphy, who played Scarecrow. The one thing in Batman Begins that drives me absolutely crazy is when he goes, "Oh, it's the Batman." It was totally like the worst acting ever. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know,
Like,
but I thought you were going to go with a different Batman where everything that Arnold Schwarzenegger says in Batman and Robin is a pun.
he he didn't even say the coolest pun that Dr. Freeze says, which is, they go freeze and he's all, that's Dr. Freeze to you, or something like that. It was a really cool line in the Batman animated series.
Yeah, well,
Um
the animated series has the definitive Mister Freeze in it. That episode
and
won an
is it,
Emmy.
that, yeah, and I think that was the first episode that they aired.
I don't know
And
if it was.
I'm pretty sure it is, and it's fucking great because that character was, I think, completely made up in the 1966 Batman TV series, and he looked really kooky in that
Yeah,
show. But what they did with them in the animated
I
series
think
was
they gave him a
fucking phenomenal.
backstory. There was never a backstory, and they gave him a backstory.
Yeah, and it was awesome. And when they tried to do it in the Batman and Robin movie, it just was
Everything
stupid.
in that movie is terrible.
It's terrible. But
I even hate
anyway,
the credits.
well, I'm just going back to JJ, I enjoy his stuff. I'm really looking forward to seeing more of his stuff. I just hope that, like you said, he goes back to the more personal stuff, because I think
Yeah,
that
get
stuff is
away
really,
from the
really
sci-fi
strong.
and the fantasy stuff. Go back to the regarding Henrys and things like that. Like tell a story like that.
Yeah, tell some, more intimate stories again. And I don't even mind the supernatural, like actually, I don't say Forever Young was supernatural, but because I think that was about a guy that was frozen in a
Right.
machine, waiting for his girl to get out of a coma or something like that. So, but even like if it has a twist like that, I'm totally down for it. But yeah, we're due for another, regarding Henry situation. We're due for a neat little personal story that's like a drama but feel good, and has some funny moments in it and stuff like that. I really like that stuff.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, he's already cracked the code with Mission Impossible and Star Wars and all that shit. It's like time to go back to your
Yeah.
roots.
So that's lucky number 13 all finished up.
Lucky number 13. That's a wrap, man. It's episode 13 of Chew on This, a Nerds United podcast. I'm BJ.
Vic,
Until next time.
later.
Peace.